know we've been talking hockey all morning, but it's time to switch to basketball. The NBA undergoing a Canadian invasion right now. Next summer, Toronto's Andrew Wiggins will likely go #1 overall in the draft. And the man who paved the way for the Canuck onslaught continues to play. Steve Nash still feeding beautiful passes for the LA Lakers. The two-time MVP had an unlikely rise to basketball stardom. His story is the subject of a brand new book by collaborators Dave Feschuk and Michael Grange. Michael joins us now from Toronto. Good morning.
Morning, Tara. How are you?
I'm great. You know, it's a great book, not just because it's so beautifully written, of course, but his story is so remarkable.
It is remarkable. You know, I think more Canadians have been in space than have been played in the NBA, and certainly Steve Nash is gone where no Canadian has ever gone before in terms of being a two-time MVP, a certain NBA Hall of Famer. And that was sort of where we started this book from. It's like, if somebody is at that rare air, that incredible peak of achievement, let's reverse engineer it. How did it happen? And we call the book The Unlikely Ascent from a Superstar, but what we did kind of discover as we went through it is there are a lot of little moments on his path where it was his choice, and he kind of took advantage of what looked like obstacles and made them stepping stones.
Well, tell us what some of those were, because you're right, he wasn't the obvious choice at every juncture in his career.
No, absolutely. But I think the one thing that, well, among many, but a couple of things that really jumped out, certainly his experience in Victoria. Now, that's maybe as far as you can get from the epicenter of the NBA, the epicenter of basketball, certainly at the time that Steve Nash grew up there. But in Canada, it was the place to grow up as a basketball player. And you had the national team program under Ken Shields would often centralize there in the summers. You had the University of Victoria Vikings basketball program was one of the best programs Canada's ever seen. Eli Pasquale, the best player on those teams, multiple national championships. He was Steve Nash's mentor. Steve Nash worked at his basketball camp, and it was Eli Pasquale who said to Steve, if you want to play in the NBA, this is the time. You have to decide now. And Steve Nash is like a 15-year-old going, really, now? And he did. And that, I think, is so you look at Victoria, wasn't an obstacle to success. I think it was essential to his success, and there's many incidences like that through his career.
Well, obviously he has exceptional skill, but one of the things you highlight in the book is his positive mental attitude. Talk about that.
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I mean, Steve Nash is a great example, not just for athletes or aspiring athletes. I think he's a great example for almost anyone in terms of maximizing your potential, and I think there's two things that jump out about him. One is he had the ability to stand back, be objective about what he was good at, what he wasn't good at, identify a plan in terms of fitness or skill development, whatever it might be, required to kind of elevate his level, and then had the discipline to execute it. And not just over one summer or a couple of years. This is like a 15 or 20-year habit of excellence that he sort of ingrained. And I think the result of that is he reached the epic of his potential. He really couldn't be better than he got. It just happened that when he reached his potential, it made him a two-time MVP.
Now, it's safe to say he's going to be remembered as one of the NBA's all-time greats, but what is his legacy? What will it be here in Canada? Because I think that is worth noting.
That's a great question. I mean, he proved that there is no barrier. And, if you can make it to the NBA and to the elite of the NBA from Victoria, BC, at the time that Steve Nash did it, certainly there's no reason a Canadian anywhere in this country can't look at a global sport and go, I belong there, I can be among the best. And certainly, as we've seen, and you mentioned in the intro, 10, 15 years later, after Steve Nash sort of broke down those barriers, they're coming in waves. And I think a lot of those people, almost all those young kids, would credit Steve Nash as an example. And the reverse is true. The United States, the sort of epicenter of basketball, kind of looked at Canada and go, wow, is there another one like that up there? We got to find them.
And it's going to be so exciting for Canadians in years to come, and not in small part because of Steve Nash. Michael, thanks for joining us this morning. Really nice to see you.
Thank you.
And the book is called Steve Nash, The Unlikely Ascent of a Superstar, and it's available now, and it's a great read. Lots still to come on the show.